Hare Krishna. Is my audio working, Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu?
It is quite fine. I can hear you very distinctly.
Thank you. I want to welcome everyone to our evening class here from Eastern Canada, Caitanya-caritāmṛta reading. I'm back at our home studio here in Hamilton, Ontario. We were on a journey across Canada by car. And it was quite interesting to note that the living entities in this world are insignificant in terms of God's creation. Especially when you go out in nature, you see millions and millions, billions of creatures, plants, animals, insects, birds, like that. And they're all coming from Krishna. Life comes from life. It doesn't come from matter. And so the human form of life, once in a while, I mentioned in Northern Ontario, when you're driving through the forest, you see occasionally one person driving in a car. There's billions of living entities around you. And you see one person drive by you occasionally. And so the human being thinks he's important. We have this illusory conception of ourselves. But the most important thing is that one achieves the human form of life, which is a rare opportunity to get out of the cycle of birth and death. This is the mercy of Krishna. And this is possible through the association of a pure devotee of Krishna, Srila Prabhupada. And we are very fortunate with our Prabhupada Disciples Association to stress this point that Prabhupada is living in sound and he is with us in our efforts to spread his mission in an unadulterated, misdirected manner. Prabhupada always stresses that we have to hear and chant in the association of devotees. And these classes that we hold online are based on the principle of hearing and chanting. Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu describes them as, for us, as readings and discussions. And in this way, we get a chance to really thoroughly review every word of Prabhupada's teachings in his books. And we started this Caitanya-caritāmṛta class, this reading and discussion class, at the beginning of the book, right at the beginning. And now we're progressing along. And it's, as I was speaking to one of our members today, he was so excited about this evening's class, Dr. Joe Felice here in Hamilton. Oh, I can't wait for tonight's class. So this is a great sign that people are appreciating the uniqueness of our presentation. And this is to preserve Prabhupada's legacy, which we've been studying his early years on the beginning. I've got the blur feature on in my computer, so it's hard to see the book. But we've been reading these early years of Srila Prabhupada's work in New York City, and we're at the end of this volume. And I thought I'd carry on with the reading. We're going to read some excerpts from Prabhupada's lectures, conversations and letters. They give further insight into the events described in his 1966 journal. Excerpt from a letter to Sally Agarwal dated November 6, 1965. My dear Sally, I'm so glad to receive your very affectionate letter of the 3rd instant and have noted the contents carefully. Yes, I have got this nice typewriter by the grace of the Lord, and I'm very much satisfied with it working. Before receiving your letter under reply, I've sent 2 letters, both to you and Gopal. I understand that you received them. In one of them, I've requested Gopal to dispatch 25 sets of books to Paragon Book Gallery, and I'm anxious to know if the books are already dispatched. Regarding the reminder of my good cooking, I'm very much thankful to you, and next time when I shall go to your home, I must serve you with good lunches without fail. So this is Sally Agarwal in Butler, Pennsylvania. So Prabhupada stayed there for 3 weeks before he made his way back to New York City. And just see the etiquette, everyone. Prabhupada's etiquette. He's anxious to cook for them in appreciation for what they did for him. Now I'm far away from you, otherwise I would have at once gone to you and entertained you with such lunches. I'm anxious to learn about the health of you all, specifically of your little children. How is your naughty daughter, Kamala? Please offer them my love and blessings, and so also accept both of you. Please write to me occasionally, as Gopal is not accustomed to reply promptly. I shall henceforward write to you. Did you meet your good father and mother in the meantime? If you meet them, please offer them my respectful regards. Just see how polite Srila Prabhupada, gentlemanly Prabhupada is. Both your father and mother are good souls, and therefore you are a good daughter of your parents. I remember all of you always. Please offer my good wishes to your friends who still remember me. I shall meet them again when I go to Butler. I like Butler more than New York, and especially the quarters in which your home is situated. Had I had the means to rent a house independently, I would have gone back again to Butler and hold my Bhagavatam discourses daily with good friends. So far, I have studied the American minds. They are eager and apt to receive bhakti cult of Srimad Bhagavatam, because the Christian religion is based on the same principle. My mission is not to turn anyone from the affiliation of a particular religion, but I want to let them know how more knowledge about God and devotion. Dr. Ramurti Mishra is also a very kind gentleman, and I'm living very comfortably at his care. He is keen after looking any of kinds of comforts. I'm negotiating with some booksellers and publishers, and I hope I shall be able to settle something before I leave for the next station. I shall be in New York still for a few days more, and I shall let you know when I leave the station. I'm so grateful to your kindness, and surely I shall ask you if I need anything. I have left my hearth and home in India, but here, by the grace of the Lord, I've got good sons and daughters like you, so I do not feel any foreign complexion. So we'll end there, and we'll carry on reading on Saturday morning, further excerpts from Srila Prabhupada referring to his wonderful adventure in spreading Krishna consciousness throughout the world. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. We're going to move forward with the chanting of Jaya Radha Madhava, and then the discourse, reading and discussion with His Grace Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Yaśodā-nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yaśodā-nandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yaśodā-nandana Brajajana Ranjana Yaśodā-nandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Namaskar Paramahansa Parivrajaga-ācārya Sattva Smadhati Dhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava ki jai Nāma-ācārya Sri Haridas Thakur ki jai Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaur Bhakti ki jai Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Sam Khanda Radha Khanda Giridhar ki jai Vrindavan Dham ki jai Navadvip Dham ki jai Ganga Mai ki jai Jamuna Mai ki jai Guru Dwarka Dham ki jai Swami Bhaktivedanta ki jai All glories to their Supreme. All glories to their Supreme. Thank you very much.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskrityam. Narayanam Namaskrityam. Naram Cheva Narottamam. Naram Cheva Narottamam. Devim Saraswatim Vyasam. Devim Saraswatim Vyasam. Tato Jayam Mudirayet. tato jayam udirayet. One should utter the means of conquest, Srimad Bhagavatam or Sri Caitanya-caritāmṛta, after offering respectful obeisances, 1, to the personality of Godhead Narayana, 2, to the Nara-Narayana Rishi, who is the supermost human being, 3, to the Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, then 4, to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. So welcome everyone to this reading, discussion, / class, or mixture of all of the above. Today on Wednesday, 13th of September, 2023. Before we begin the actual reading, in Adi Lila chapter 4, text 41, we will read a few verses from Adi Lila chapter 1, from text 18 to 22, describing the transcendental benefits of hearing this great literature of Sri Caitanya-caritāmṛta. Jai Jai Sri Caitanya Jai Nityananda Jai Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Glory to Sri Caitanya and Nityananda. Glory to Advaita Chandra, and glory to all the devotees of Sri Gaura, Lord Chaitanya. Text 19. Etina Thakur Gaudiya ki Korye Chano Atmasat, Etinera Charana Vandana Tire Morenat. These 3 deities of Vrindavana, Madan Mohan, Govinda, and Gopinatha, have absorbed the heart and soul of the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, followers of Lord Chaitanya. I worship their lotus feet, for they are the lords of my heart. Grantera Rambe Kari Mangala Charanam Guru Vaishnava Bhagavan Tinera Smaharana. In the beginning of this narration, simply by remembering the spiritual master, the devotees of the Lord, and the personality of Godhead, I have invoked their benedictions. Text 21. Tinera Smaraneai Vignavinashana Anayaseai Nijavanchita Purana. Such remembrance destroys all difficulties and very easily enables one to fulfill his own desires. Simangala Charanoi Trivida Prakar Vastu Nirdesha Shiravada Namaskara. The invocation involved 3 processes: defining the objective, offering benedictions, and offering obeisances. Again, welcome everyone to this very auspicious transcendental reading of Sri Caitanya-caritāmṛta. Today we'll be reading a few verses from Adi Lila, chapter 4, from text 41. E Makta Bhakta Baba Karyangikar, Apanyachari Bhakti Karyala Prachar, E Mata, like this. Bhakta Baba, the position of a devotee. Kari, making. Angikar, acceptance. Apani, himself. Achari, practicing. Bhakti, devotional service. Karila, did. Prachara, propagation. Translation. In this way, assuming the sentiment of a devotee, he preached devotional service while practicing it himself. Purport. When Rupa Goswami met Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Prayaga, Allahabad, he offered his respectful obeisances by submitting that Lord Chaitanya was more magnanimous than any other avatar of Krishna, because he was distributing love of Krishna. His mission was to enhance love of Godhead. In the human form of life, the highest achievement is to attain the platform of love of Godhead. Lord Chaitanya did not invent a system of religion as people sometimes assume. Religious systems are meant to show the existence of God, who is then generally approached as the cosmic order supplier. But Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's transcendental mission is to distribute love of Godhead to everyone. Anyone who accepts God as the Supreme can take to the process of chanting Hare Krishna and become a lover of God. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya is the most magnanimous. This munificent broadcasting of devotional service is possible only for Krishna himself. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya is Krishna. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna has taught the philosophy of surrender to the Supreme, a surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who has surrendered to the Supreme can make further progress by learning to love him. Therefore, the Krishna Consciousness movement propagated by Lord Chaitanya is especially meant for those who are cognizant of the presence of the Supreme Godhead, the ultimate controller of everything. His mission is to teach people how to dovetail themselves into engagements of transcendental loving service. He is Krishna teaching his own service from the position of a devotee. The Lord's acceptance of the role of a devotee in the eternal form of the Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is another of the Lord's wonderful features. A conditioned soul cannot reach the absolute personality of Godhead by his imperfect endeavor. And therefore, it is wonderful that Lord Sri Krishna, in the form of Lord Gauranga, has made it easy for everyone to approach him. Swarup Damodar Goswami has described Lord Chaitanya as Krishna himself with the attitude of Radharani, or a combination of Radha and Krishna. His intention is to taste Krishna's sweetness in transcendental love. Lord Chaitanya does not care to think of himself as Krishna, because he wants the position of Radharani. We should remember this. A class of so-called devotees, called the Nadiya Nagari or Gaura Nagari, pretend that they have the sentiment of gopis towards Lord Chaitanya, but they do not realize that he placed himself not as the enjoyer, Krishna, but as the enjoyed, the devotee of Krishna. The concoctions of unauthorized persons pretending to be bona fide have not been accepted by Lord Chaitanya. Presentations such as those of the Gaura Nagari are only disturbances to the sincere execution of the mission of Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya is undoubtedly Krishna himself, and he is always non-different from Srimati Radharani. But the emotion technically called Vipralamba Bhava from Srimati, which the Lord adopted for confidential reason, should not be disturbed in the name of service. A mundaner should not unnecessarily intrude into affairs of transcendence and thereby displease the Lord. One must always be on guard against this sort of devotional anomaly. A devotee is not meant to create disturbances to Krishna. As Srila Rupa Goswami has explained, devotional service is anukulyena, or favorable to Krishna. Acting unfavorably toward Krishna is not devotion. Kamsa was the enemy of Krishna. He always thought of Krishna, but he thought of him as an enemy. One should always avoid such unfavorable so-called service. Lord Chaitanya has accepted the role of Radharani, and we should support that position, as Swarup Damodar did in the Gambhira, the house of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Puri. He always reminded Lord Chaitanya of Radha's feelings of separation as they are described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And Lord Chaitanya appreciated his assistance. But the Gaura Nagari, who placed Lord Chaitanya in the position of enjoyer and themselves as is enjoyed, are not approved by Lord Chaitanya or by Lord Chaitanya's followers. Instead of being blessed, the foolish imitators are left completely apart. Their concoction are against the principles of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The doctrine of transcendental enjoyment by Krishna cannot be mixed up with the doctrine of transcendental feeling of separation from Krishna in the role of Radharani. Text 42. Dasya sakya vatsalyarya shringar chari prema chaturvida bhakta adhar. Dasya, servitude. Sakya, friendship. Vatsalya, parental affection. Ar, and. Ye, that. Shringara, conjugal love. Chari, four types. Prema, love of God. Chatu vidha, four kinds. Bhaktayi, devotees. Adhara, the containers. Translation. Four kinds of devotees are the receptacles of the four kinds of mellows in love of God, namely servitude, friendship, parental affection, and conjugal love. Text 43. Nija nija bhava sabe srishto karimane, nija bhave karish Krishna shuka asvadane, nija, each his own, bhava, mood, sabe, all, srishta kari, making the best, mane, accepts, nija bhave, in his own mood, kare, does, Krishna sukha, happiness with Lord Krishna, asvadane, tasting. Each kind of devotee feels that his sentiment is the most excellent, and thus, in that mood, he tastes great happiness with Lord Krishna. Text 44. Tatashto yemani vicharyadi kari, sabara soeti sringara dikara maduri. Tatashta hoya, becoming impartial. Mane, in the mind. Vichara, consideration. Yadi, if. Kari, doing. Sabarasa, all the mellows. Oite, then. Sringare, in conjugal love. Adika, greater. Madhuri, sweetness. Translation. But if we compare the sentiments in an impartial mood, we find that the conjugal sentiment is superior to all in sweetness. Purport. No one is higher or lower than anyone else in transcendental relationships with the Lord. For in the absolute realm, everything is equal. But although these relationships are absolute, there are also transcendental differences between them. Thus, the transcendental relationship of conjugal love is considered the highest perfection. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Bhakti Siddhanta Shishyaya Bhaktivedanta Namine Prasannaya Prashantaya Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Bhagavad Vandanam Kadhyam Guru Vandana Purvakam Kshiram Sharkara Yuktam Kadatihi Visheshataha Adadana Strinam Danter Idam Yache Punaha Punaha Srimad Rupa Padam Bhoja Durishyam Janma Janmani. Namo Mahabhadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Ghoratvishe Namaha. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrindam. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We see, kindly excuse me today, my voice is a little hoarse. We see in the Bhagavad Gita how Lord Krishna has explained Ye yatamam prapadyante tamstateva bhajamyaham. That as they surrender unto me, I reward them accordingly. Now, this is a very important point, because sometimes we see that when people approach the subject of developing rasas with Krishna, or different stages of love of Godhead, they have very difficulty understanding this topic. This is not a topic for those who are engrossed in material sense gratification. It is not a topic for those who are mundaners or speculators or so-called yogis or karmis. We see in the Caitanya-caritāmṛta how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has explained that this verse, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama eva kevalam, Kalo nastyeva, nastyeva, nastyeva gatiranyata. In the Caitanya-caritāmṛta, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami explains that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is conclusion that why is it that this verse emphasizes 3 times the chanting of the name of Lord Hari. And the explanation is given that one cannot achieve the favor and love of God or love of Hari by yoga, by karma, or by jnana, by practice of yoga, by fruitive activities, or by mental speculation. We see in the Bhagavad Gita itself how there are so many references that Lord Krishna himself describes manmana bhavamad bhakto madhyachimam namaskuru. Just become my devotee, bow down to me, surrender unto me, worship me. This is the prescribed formula so that one can gradually purify his life and enter into the higher realms of bhakti. Now, Srila Prabhupada was very careful. We've discussed this several times. Every time devotees would ask him about Siddha Swarupa, about Siddha Prema, about the highest achievement, or how to understand the Rasa Lila, every time Prabhupada would reply, first you become liberated. First, you understand that you are not the body. First, you go beyond the bodily conception of life, and then it will be revealed to you. There's an interesting event one time that took place in Mayapur. Some ladies were adjusting the wig to fit on the top of the Radha Krishna deity. So these ladies, they went to Srila Prabhupada and asked him, should it be like this? Should it be like that? Should Lord Krishna a little bit like this? Should Radharani? Prabhupada says, no. Prabhupada said, Krishna told me it should be like this. And devotees were like, what? And this is the difference between a fully realized, completely perfect, pure devotee and a neophyte. One cannot artificially jump to the most exalted platform of bhakti and think that this will do the trick. That's not how the process works. We've often told the story how in Calcutta in 1971, a few sannyasis went to see Srila Prabhupada and they tried to discuss with him, when the spiritual master closes his eyes, what does he see? And Prabhupada put his finger out and he said, that you do not need to ask. So one Swami, Bhaktivedanta Swami, who incidentally was a very formidable preacher and kirtan leader, he asked Srila Prabhupada, but Srila Prabhupada, when the pure devotee closes his eyes, what does he see? And Prabhupada says, the pure devotee, when he closes his eyes, he sees the pastimes of Radha Krishna manifested in his heart 24 hours a day. So there's a big difference between the Nitya Siddha Mahabhagavat Shakti Avisha Avatāra empowered, especially empowered pure devotee, and some so-called rubber stamp, self-appointed so-called pure devotee. Prabhupada in this purport is criticizing one of the different Sahaja groups called the Gaura Nagari, because Prabhupada says they're only causing disturbances. The concoctions of unauthorized persons pretending to be bona fide have not been accepted by Lord Chaitanya. Presentations such as those of the Gaura Nagari are only disturbances to the sincere execution of the mission of Lord Chaitanya. This is a very important point. We see when we carefully study the Nectar Devotion, the bona fide authorized translation of Srila Rupa Goswami's Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Prabhupada would often quote this verse, Shruti Smriti Puranadi Pancharatikri Vadim Vina Ekantiki Harer Bhaktir Utpatayeva Kalpate. That devotional service which does not follow the Shruti, the Smriti, the Pancharatra, these authorized bona fide literatures, that kind of bhakti is called utpat. It will simply cause chaos in human society and in devotional society. This is a very important point because we see by carefully study the history of our sampradaya that there have been instances with these different groups, like we have this Gauranagari here, Prabhupada is describing, who advocate some wrong philosophy which does not follow in the footsteps of the Goswamis. That these kind of groups are very injurious to the propagation of Krishna consciousness. I remember in 1978, I occasionally used to go see a Vaishnava in Vrindavan named Vishrambar Goswami. He was in the Radharaman temple, and he was the son of one Madhusudana Saraswati Goswami, and his father, Vishrambar Goswami's father, used to be running correspondence with Bhaktivedanta Thakur of how to spread the movement of Lord Chaitanya. This Vishrambar Goswami used to regularly read Srimad Bhagavatam with Srila Prabhupada at the Radha Damodar temple before our Srila Prabhupada came to America. So there are sometimes certain groups which have been labeled as not following in the footsteps of Lord Chaitanya, but one can never know what is the exact position of such persons. Sometimes some of them are very, very sincere and great exalted souls who follow in the footsteps of great acharyas. One of these opportunities I had to discuss with Vishrambar Goswami, he was explaining how the Gaudiya Sampradaya has underwent many tribulations in the last few hundred years. And he was explaining how his family, his father, was very, very appreciative of the preaching efforts of Bhaktivedanta Thakur. So this is a very important point. Because those who are seriously interested in following the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the teachings of the 6 Goswamis, the principal disciples of Lord Chaitanya, they have to follow very carefully, study very carefully the Shastras. Like recently, Vishwakarma Prabhu pointed out that Srila Prabhupada wanted all of his followers and students and disciples, all of them, to carefully read his books, to carefully study his books. Several times I've told the story how in May of 1977, I had the inconceivable good fortune of spending a few hours at night with Srila Prabhupada on the 2nd floor of his house in Vrindavan, behind the Krishna Balaram temple, attending him, and if he needed to go to the washroom or if he needed something, some kind of assistance, I would be there. And Srila Prabhupada, one thing that I noticed, that he never practically went to sleep. He would rest, but he would never go into a deep sleep. He would always be chanting, always. So one of these nights, Srila Prabhupada asked me, so you work in the Gurukul, don't you? I said, yes, Srila Prabhupada. So how do you teach the children? What do you teach them? I said, well, we teach them from your book, Srila Prabhupada. We take books like Easy Journey to Other Planets, Sri Upanishad, Perfection of Yoga, Beyond Birth and Death, all of these smaller books, and we read with them. And then they all have notebooks. I'm speaking, this was for those boys that are between 9 and 12 or 14. They all had notebooks, and Prabhupada said, so what else do you do? I said, what if there are Sanskrit verses to be read? We read them. They also read them afterwards. And then we look at your translation. We study the purports, and we start making notes of all the Sanskrit or Bengali quotations. Every time there's either a Sanskrit word or a combination of words, or quotation from the scriptures that you have given, we make a separate list. And Prabhupada says, yes, that is very good. And Prabhupada said, what else do you do? I says, well, every time there's an analogy or an example, we take that and compile a separate list also. And then every time we analyze the purports and make like bullet points of all the major points that are given there. And Prabhupada said, that is a very good way of studying. He said, you do like that. So you go systematically through all the books like that. And Prabhupada explained, just like when I came to your country, I was giving lectures, but every time I give a lecture, I give evidence with Sanskrit quotations from Caitanya-caritāmṛta, Bengali quotations, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. It is very good that these boys are learning like that. I said, devotees should first read the books, then they should very carefully study the books. In 1977, when Srila Prabhupada went to London, a prominent member of the GBC brought several big book distributors to see Srila Prabhupada in London. And these devotees were introduced, well, so-and-so over here distributes that many books, so-and-so over there distributes that many books, and so-and-so Dasi over here has done so much service distributing so many books. And Prabhupada replied, that is very nice. So which one of you have carefully studied my books? And there was this dead silence. Now, we don't decry or criticize any devotee of Srila Prabhupada that has done the sacrifice and has undertaken the task and service of distributing books. That is a very exalted service, very dear to Srila Prabhupada and very dear to Krishna. But Srila Prabhupada insisted that devotees should learn how to study his books. One time we were behind in the morning walk in 1972. Srila Prabhupada went all around the Radha Damodar temple. When he came behind the temple, he stopped and said, this is the place where the 6 Goswamis used to sometimes sit down and study and discuss shastras together, and also they would take prasadam. So these various literatures that have been compiled by great acharyas like our Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktivedanta Thakur, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Baladevi Vidyabhushana, Vishnu Chakravarti, the 6 Goswamis, these are not just sentimental stories. These are very scientific, systematic presentation of the science of bhakti, how to reach that ultimate goal of life. We've often discussed a famous verse by Srinath Chakravarti, who summarized the teachings of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And one of the points that he makes is Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanamamalam, that the Srimad Bhagavatam is the topmost literature, the spotless evidence, Prema Pumarta Mahan, and development of Prema is the ultimate goal of life. And he very nicely gives his conclusion at the end of this verse, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhur Matamidam, that in my opinion, there is no higher personality, there's no more magnanimous personality than Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhur Matamidam Tatradaro Naparaha. Naparaha means there's no one higher than Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But then the question will come, well, how to achieve that level? How to understand the inner teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? There is no shortcut. There is no special magic bullet or silver bullet to understand the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. Srila Prabhupada, we've discussed around the time of Janmashtami, when we were in Sacramento, with Bhaktivedanta Prabhu, we were discussing how Lord Krishna appears only once in a day of Lord Brahma, that is 8,640,000,000 years. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also only comes once in a day of Lord Brahma. So just think how fortunate we are that within that time frame, Srila Prabhupada, who is a direct associate of Lord Chaitanya in the spiritual world, has come to this planet to present the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, travel all over the world to bring these teachings. Now, we do know that there is some class, some group of Gaudiya Vaishnavas, various groups, who try to present a shortcut, try to present a quick silver bullet to achieve this Siddha Deha and all of these highly elevated stages of love of Godhead. But as we've discussed before, Prabhupada was presenting things in a very practical, systematic way. Very practical, systematic way. When we study, just like we are reading these diaries of what Srila Prabhupada did and all the sacrifices he did to introduce Krishna consciousness in America in 1965, 1966, 1967. He had 2 heart attacks on the boat. Then on 1967, he had another heart attack. So he came very close to going back to Godhead early. But some way or other, Krishna protected him. There's a very nice conversation in the Srila Prabhupada conversation books. Srila Prabhupada is telling one sannyasi, Trivikram Swami, of how when he was on the Jaladuta and he experienced this heart attack, he had a dream that the boat, the Jaladuta, was being rowed by the 10 incarnations. And they were rowing the boat all the way to America to bring Srila Prabhupada. There's another picture where Lord Krishna was massaging Prabhupada's heart. So this personality is not just a regular guru or somebody who came here at the right place at the right time. Yeah, that is true. Krishna sent him here at this particular time, in this particular place, in that particular environment. But Srila Prabhupada is a lot more than that. We have to educate ourselves. What is a Nitya Siddha? What is an eternally liberated soul? What is a Mahabhagavata? What is a pure devotee? What is a fully realized pure devotee? In 1968, Srila Prabhupada told one of his followers, he says, "Do you know the difference between you and me?" And the devotee says, "No, Srila Prabhupada. The difference is, if I was in a room with 10 attractive naked women, I would not be the least agitated, and you would be very agitated. That is the difference. That is a topmost Mahabhagavata. And any attempt to imitate such a person is very injurious to one's spiritual life. Whether one imitates or disobeys or slights or minimizes such an exalted person in any way is very injurious. Very injurious. Today, some devotee asked me, says, why did Prabhupada put some of these people in charge of his society? Why did Prabhupada nominate these people to such and such position? And my first reply basically was, it depends what position you're talking about. They may have thought that they were being appointed to a certain position, but Prabhupada had a very different idea. In other words, the spiritual master, the Acharya, who is directly in touch with Krishna 24 hours a day, will not put a disciple or a follower in a position that he cannot follow. But if one disobeys the Acharya, if one disrespects the Acharya, on the plea that we are just trying to follow, we're just trying to do what Prabhupada did, we're just trying to preach, oh, these are emergency times, we have to do this and that, so many different nonsensical ideas. Because the tendency of the conditioned soul is to deviate. And the eternal position of the liberated souls is to always follow, to always remain humble, to always remain subservient. How many times have we quoted that famous verse of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Dasa, 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 Gopi Jana, Gopi Bhartuhu, Padakamalayur, Dasa, Dasa, Anudasaha. This is the essence of Lord Chaitanya's teaching, just like Lord Chaitanya is given in Nishikshastakam. Nadhanam, Najanam, Nasundarim, Kavitam Vajagadisha Kamaye, Mama Janmani Janmani Swari. If you don't want this, if you don't want that, if you don't want wealth, if you don't want followers, if you don't want beautiful women, if you don't want to be a famous poet, what do you want? What is it that you're looking for? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu revealed, Mama Janmani Janmani Swari, Babatad Bhakti Raituki, causeless service, causeless devotion and service at your lotus feet. We see in the writings of Bhaktivedanta Thakur, in his various songs, he expresses the same devotional sentiments. Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami, the celebrated author of Sri Caitanya-caritāmṛta, expresses the same sentiments. King Kulashekar, the famous Alvar, in the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, also expresses the same sentiment. All these great acharyas and great Vaishnavas, none of them are thinking of themselves very, very big, although they are devotional and literary giants. But they show by example how to conduct oneself, not to think that I'm such a great devotee, I'm such a popular devotee, and my favorite say, to think himself such a senior devotee. Recently, a very new devotee asked me, why is it that after Prabhupada departed, so many senior devotees had so many problems and deviations? And my reply was, well, what do you think? Why do you think? Why do you think that is? First of all, one should never think I'm a senior devotee. Even if one is a senior devotee, he should not be puffed up or arrogant to think I'm such a senior devotee. Because we see from historical analysis that some of the people who taught themselves to be such big senior devotees ended up to be some of the most senior deviants. So one should not be arrogant thinking, oh, I was initiated at such and such place, I had so much association with Prabhupada. That's all nonsense. On one hand, that was your good fortune. That your extraordinary good fortune bestowed on you. But if this become a source of false pride, then you're a nonsense. Instead of a senior devotee, you become a senior nonsense. Several times we've discussed how Srila Prabhupada one time was asked on morning walk, what about the big devotees in the movement? Prabhupada stopped. He put his head towards the sky. He says, I'm the only big devotee in this movement. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. All glories to His Divine Grace, the real senior big devotee.
Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much, Yaśodā-nandana, for that wonderful explanation of these verses. And I also thought it was quite profound in the purport how Prabhupada describes Krishna in relation to Radharani. It's very revealing because Lord Chaitanya never wanted himself, does not care to think of himself as Krishna. Because he wants the position of Radharani. which he considers superior to his position. Why? That's the question. And the answer is because she is the greatest servant of Krishna. That's her position. So the position of a devotee is to always remain a servant. Prabhupada further explained in that purport, mundaners should not unnecessarily intrude into the affairs of transcendence and thereby displease the Lord. So those people that are on the mundane platform that speculate that they've become big devotees, as you said, and want to imitate the affairs between Radha and Krishna, like Sahajya tendency, they're creating a great deal of disturbance in the human society by becoming imposters. They're faking, pretending, posing as big devotees, when in fact we should be much different than that. Prabhupada's telling us we have to remain humble servants. One must be always on guard, Prabhupada says, against this sort of devotional anomaly. A devotee is not meant to create disturbances to Krishna, because if they do, then Krishna may punish them. This is very serious, this particular misrepresentation of the philosophy. And this is common going on in many mats and temples in India. Nowadays, there's a proliferation of gurus. I was speaking to a god sister today from India, and she told me there are thousands of gurus now, all pretending to be lovers of Krishna, all pretending to be gopis, and all anxious to get money and social position and fame and name. It's interesting to note, Yaśodā, that, and you've told this story many times about this book here. See it? This is the Govinda Lilamrita. Yaśodā told us the story of Prabhupada saying, yes, you can read that and you can make a translation, but only make one. Because this was given to me, it was sent to me in the mail from one of my godbrothers. He was the same one that told me, oh, you don't need to chant your rounds anymore, Vishvakarma. You've been a devotee for so long. You're on the Rupanuga platform. You don't have to chant 16 rounds. I was assisting. And it was interesting to note, Yaśodā, that you were saying that Prabhupada was always chanting. How is it that Prabhupada, our guru, is always chanting, and then you're telling me I don't need to chant? This is Sahajiyism. He said, my godbrother, he said, so I want you to read this book, because this book here is the pastimes of Krishna in the spiritual world. You have to read this. I thought to myself, just intuitively, I knew I'm certainly not qualified to read that. I'm lucky just to be a simple devotee. He said, so Prabhupada never encouraged us to jump over the instructions of the spiritual master and think we are some kind of big devotee. He taught us always to remain humble servants. That was the way that Jayananda Prabhu conducted himself as a devotee when he was physically present with us. He was never thinking, oh, I've become one of the gopis of Vrindavan. He was always thinking, I'm simply the servant of the devotees. At my initiation, I've told this many times, he gave that simple instruction to me. Prabhupada said, you should never consider yourself the chief engineer, Vishvakarma, but the servant of the servant. of the chief engineer. In this way, you'll become great. So the more we take the humble position, Prabhus, of being servants of the spiritual master and the devotees of the Lord that are dedicated to the mission of the bona fide spiritual master, I call them the bona fide disciples. Bona fide spiritual master, bona fide disciples. Not deviants. Not that we should become sahajya. Sahajya means imposter, pretender on the highest platform, proclaiming to be lovers of Krishna. This is the destruction of one's devotional creeper. It's like poison and entering into the system of one's spiritual life. One who says he is my devotee, Krishna explains in the Nectar of Devotion by Rupa Goswami. He says, one who says he is my devotee is not my devotee, but one who is the devotee of my devotee, he is my devotee. So, Trinadapi Sunichena Turorapi Sahishnuna Amanina Amanadena Kirtaniya Sahari. In the humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than the straw in the street. After all, consider this. Look at this body. This body is a place of ignorance. It doesn't take a genius to figure that out. All you have to do is see with your own eyes how it's deteriorating. All we have to do is remain humble servants of the Lord and use the spiritual energy that we have, which is in this body, to serve his mission. In this way, we can go back home, back to Godhead at the time of death. Yaśodā, please, if you could further comment.
Well, this is a very important point, because we see that many people, 46 years after Prabhupada's departure, are still discussing issues of succession, issues of initiation, issues of connection with the disciplic succession. But many people obstinately refuse to accept Srila Prabhupada's statement of how he would remain the Diksha-Acārya after his disappearance. Why? Well, we have to look at it from a philosophical perspective, not a personal attack perspective. We saw in the first few years after Prabhupada departed, how many people who were presenting the theory or the speculative idea that Prabhupada had appointed some divinely chosen successors, some uttamadhikaris, and that these people at one point were very special. Well, we can recognize any devotee who has done service for the mission, who has done service for Krishna. That should be recognized. One should give proper credit where credit is due. But if one disobeys the Acārya, if one manufactures ideas and conclusions that are against the teachings of the Acārya and disobeys the order of the Acārya, then it doesn't matter how much service he did, then it becomes chaos. That's what I was quoting that verse. Utpatayeva kalpate. Utpatayeva means, utpat in Sanskrit means simply chaos. Disturbance. It becomes a disturbance on the path of devotional service in regular society and in devotional society. Because why? Because the Acārya knows how to engage people in Krishna's service. He is especially empowered. How? Because he's in direct contact with Krishna. There was a conversation in New York in 1976 where one journalist posed to Srila Prabhupada, how do you know which person to choose for which position or which task? How do you know? And then one devotee, one GBC suggested, well, if I choose somebody, that means my intelligence is telling me, Prabhupada says, no, no, no. Then Srila Prabhupada says, Krishna will tell him directly. That is the difference between the fully realized pure devotee, eternally liberated soul, and the neophyte. One cannot speculate upon the mind of a pure devotee. There is even a verse in the Caitanya-caritāmṛta, Vaishnavara kriya bhujaya, that you cannot speculate upon the mind of a pure Vaishnava. Why? Because that person is directly in touch with Krishna. In the Antya-lila of Caitanya-caritāmṛta, in chapter 5, there's a purport where Srila Prabhupada described that when the spiritual master speaks, it should be understood that Krishna is speaking directly through him. What we had with Srila Prabhupada is like Krishna talking to us through Srila Prabhupada. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu talking to us directly to the mouth of his pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada. So those that did not understand or accept Srila Prabhupada's position, that tried to imitate Srila Prabhupada, oftentimes they try to revise history. They try to concoct a new version of history to try to twist and fabricate a new understanding of what took place. It's very simple what took place. They disobeyed the instruction of the pure devotee. That's what took place. Phalena parichiyate, judge a thing by its result. Prabhupada used to often say, how did the movement spread all over the world so fast? Because Prabhupada had no personal motivation. There was not any tinge of personal motivation. When I first came to the Los Angeles Temple in 1970 in July, one of Srila Prabhupada's servants told me a story how a very attractive woman, like a playboy type bunny, super attractive woman, came to Srila Prabhupada to visit him in his room. And she asked Srila Prabhupada, can I do anything personally for you? Some personal service for you? Prabhupada said, no. All you can do is chant Hare Krishna. She says, no, no, no. She said, I'm talking a personal service for you. Well, what she was hinting or whatever she is hinting, Prabhupada could detect whatever her motivation was. And Prabhupada's point is, you just chant Hare Krishna. Your life will be sublime. It doesn't matter how attractive you may be, how intelligent you may be, how wealthy you may be. That pure devotee was never, ever under the influence of the material energy. Never. This is important to understand. Because when we see the difference between the behavior of people who deviate and disobey the instruction of the Acharya and the pure devotee, there's a gulf of difference. Now, we're not trying to attack anybody because ultimately Krishna is Bhava Grahi Janardana. He looks at the good service that anyone has done. But if anyone insults or minimizes his pure devotee, there are consequences. And one has to be intelligent to look at history and understand why this happened. To show by example how not to behave, how not to act, how not to conduct oneself, how not to offend other devotees, how not to imitate the Acharya. This is why these things have happened. And those who are intelligent and not deluded, or did not eat enough parampara pablam, they'll understand. This is important. Parampara pablam, they accept everything blindly, just like on this call here. There's a devotee in Texas, Dharma Bhavana. I know this devotee. I know his wife. I've spoken to both of them. Very dedicated to Prabhupada's mission. Very dedicated. Serious preachers. They organize meetings. They have Sankirtan. They teach children. They'll get 50, 60, 100 people engaged in Prabhupada's service. But yet, there's some people who don't like it. Oh, no, they don't like it. Recently, he wrote a book about Srila Prabhupada's in Dallas, Texas, the experiences of Srila Prabhupada in Dallas, Texas. Very nice book. I happened to see this book. But some people are criticizing him. Why? because he's not dishing out the usual parampara pablum. The official just accept Prabhu, don't make waves, don't raise too many questions. Well, that's nice. There's a lot of questions, but very few answers. There's a lot of perfect questions. Srila Prabhupada give the perfect answers. Can the current managers give the actual answers? Can they give some factual, true answers? That remains to be seen. Stay tuned. Hare Krishna.
Haribol. We're going to call on a few of our members to speak further on these topics. But I wanted to comment, Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu, that this Sahajiism, this movement of imposters, was also prevalent in the Gaudiya Math during Bhaktisiddhanta's Vapu presence, and after it became more apparent that many of Prabhupada's godbrothers had taken up this path of so-called elevated devotional service. And you'll see behind me, I have a huge library of books, many of them from the Gaudiya Math. I've received them from different god brothers and god sisters who send me books and have me look at them. And when I read them, let me say this, it's not very inspiring to read them at all. Compared to what we're reading right now, today's purports, today's insights from Srila Prabhupada in his Vani incarnation are the highest levels of spiritual opportunity that anybody could get. How did we become so fortunate? That's just the inconceivable mercy from Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya, who dragged us all out of the mud of material existence. So we should be careful not to be drawn in by these warnings that Srila Prabhupada gave us in his books. I was mentioning to Yaśodā-nandana Balaram Prabhu that Prabhupada, when he was writing Caitanya-caritāmṛta, he was referring to a lot of situations which had taken place in the Gaudiya Math, and he was warning us not to fall into those traps. He wasn't targeting his disciples. He was speaking about his own practical experiences of going through the Gaudiya Math. And when you know his history, Balaram, you know he went through a lot of different stages of acceptance by his godbrothers. At the beginning, they didn't accept him at all. He was just some grihasta, outsider, who had taken up the order given by his spiritual master and decided after he took sannyas to stay in Radha Damodar temple for 10 years and then finally get a passage by persistence through Sumati Morarji and get on a boat, a freighter, and come to America. People still didn't accept him when we were reading the initial period when he arrived in New York. Did anyone want to help him? No. So like that, this particular situation that we're in is very similar to the Gaudiya Math and Prabhupada had to deal with when he was alive. Very similar. I've written an article called Gaudiya Math Part ISKCON, Gaudiya Math Part 2. Balaramji in Australia, please share us your insights today on this discussion. Hare Krishna. Your microphone, please. Not working? I was having some trouble myself with the sound. I'm going to get Venkat Bhatta Prabhu to help me after the talk today. I was on the road. Janice Priya in Australia. Let's see if...
Yeah, Australia. Yes, Australia. Haribol. Hare Krishna. Yeah, the fake it till you make it program that they have. It's called the fake it till you make it. And actually, when you tell a lie enough times, it becomes true. You start believing it yourself. And they tell these lies with such conviction because they've been lying right from the get-go, faking it. So God help them, that's all I can say. And more importantly, we need to understand what Yasoda-nanda was saying, that we're so fortunate beyond belief that we have access actually to a pure devotee of the highest possible caliber. And Prabhupada is right there. He's very alive. He's so eager to hear from anybody. If anybody cries to Prabhupada for help, Prabhupada is right there. And you'll experience this. As soon as you open that book, I never had that experience with any book. You open a book and you feel Prabhupada's presence. It's like immediate, it's right there. He said, especially in my books, I am present. So it's so nice that we're reading these original books, and these books are being read by a jiva that is trying to serve, not looking for name, fame, money. We don't care about any of those things. Prabhupada didn't care about. Prabhupada had so much to give. He didn't need anything from anybody. And it's beyond my wildest dreams. How could, in their divine intelligence, these fellows think that they could be Prabhupada, the envious of Prabhupada? That was the problem. Is they had envy of Prabhupada. They wanted to be Prabhupada, so much so that they couldn't wait till he left on his own accord. Simply envy. So we should never be envious, actually, of any devotee, good or bad. Just pray for them. I like to pray for everybody, hoping that if I pray for somebody, then Krishna might be kind upon me and give me just enough faith and determination so I could chant my rounds attentively, so I could read his books. Study the book, don't read the book. Anybody could read a book, but we need to study these books like we're doing here. And if we do that, then immediately we feel in our life, and I want to thank this Sangha for pulling me out of the mud. And I feel like, because due to the association that I've been getting for here, I'm doing a lot better, and I'm real happy. And thank you so much to everybody. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu, and it's always a pleasure to get your understanding.
One more thing. I really want to try to encourage everybody to invite one person to the next class. Even if it's a one-time person, because we don't know. We keep inviting people and some will stay. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. I see that we've got audio connection in Australia. And before we end the class, I'd like to invite our godbrother Balaramji to please share his realizations on these topics. Balaram in Australia.
Hare Krishna, can you hear me?
Oh yes, loud and clear. Thank you.
Good. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for the wonderful discourses, Prabhus. I was just nearly at the end, but I just wanted to comment on the point that you were making. It was about the the devotees who say we don't have to chant anymore and we don't need to worship the deity and so on, and also we don't need to preach, you know. So what is the situation with Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur? He did not need to chant anymore. And also Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he sent his 2 whips out to preach every day. Lord Nityananda and Haridas Thakur, they would go door to door requesting everyone, please chant Hare Krishna. But these fallen souls in Kali Yuga say, oh no, we do not need to chant. We're already on the level of realizing our Siddhadeha. So all we can do is wish them well in their endeavors and continue on with Srila Prabhupada's. The problem is these people, even so many initiated, they don't actually understand the transcendental nature of Srila Prabhupada. They don't understand his where he's coming from, you know, and that's due to various reasons. They become complacent. We see so many devotees who had a lot of personal association with Srila Prabhupada. But still, we can't understand why have they fallen away. You know, they've had so much association, so much personal service, but somehow or other, that's not for us to really understand. But I was just reading the other day in, I think, 2nd chapter, Bhogasvaidya Prashaktanam Taya Parita Chetasam Vyavasayatamika Buddhi Samadho Na Vidijate. Krishna actually says, in the minds of those who are too attached to sense gratification and material opulence, the resolute determination to perform devotional service does not take place. Samadho na vidhi jate. The resolute determination, vyavasayatmika, it does not take place. So we have to see, while we're practicing our devotional service, our sadhana, we have to at the same time be cutting away the anarthas, because if we're cultivating devotional service, but at the same time not getting rid of these anarthas, and they're so strong, well, then they will be simply like the weeds, and then that is our material outlook on life, and that must be conveyed also to the spiritual master. So thank you very much for the wonderful discourse, Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu. So strong. Thank you very much. And Hare Krishna.
Yes, and I think that further your comment, Prabhu, that there are many people that come to Krishna consciousness and then leave. It's more or less a sign of insanity. But the reason people are insane is because this material world is an insane asylum. We're here for a reason, and it's very difficult. Devi Yeshu Gunamayi, it's very difficult to overcome material desire. It is not easy. It is very difficult to understand you're not the body. It is very difficult to realize you're a servant of Krishna, but those who are prepared to listen, to surrender to Krishna and to the spiritual master via transparent via medium. Prabhupada is the transparent via medium, as you were explaining, is that Prabhupada and Janaspriya, that Prabhupada is a very unique soul, and our opportunity to become spiritually enlightened is right in front of us. The opportunity is here. And as Janaspriya was saying, please, Prabhus, take advantage of this opportunity and share it with others. I get very frustrated when I see that we have very few people on these calls, despite the fact that we've been running them for 10 months. What's You look at other people, they've got like millions of people following them. If you look at Sadhguru, he's got millions of followers. And we're presenting the truth to people unadulterated, and here we're struggling. But we have to keep working and trying harder. So thank you everyone for being a part of our Wednesday night Caitanya-caritāmṛta reading and discussion. I wanted to congratulate Yaśodā-nandana Prabhu and Bhaktivedanta Singh in Sacramento for a successful program last week on Thursday and Friday, Janmashtami festival and the Vyas Puja celebration that they held. It was extremely successful and encouraging for all of us. And we're going to continue to annually produce these events. And we're moving ahead. I'm going to be speaking in Japan this weekend by Zoom to the Japanese devotees there on Prabhupada's position as Diksha Guru for everyone, everywhere, for all time. So we're gradually, step by step, moving forward. We're having a PDA meeting tomorrow night with our group of media participants. And we're going to be discussing some very exciting plans moving forward into the future in spreading the mission of Lord Chaitanya on every level possible that we can utilize in the Lord's service. So thank you again. Thank you, Vinkat Bhatta, for being back behind the control panel this evening. It's appreciated very much. And we want to thank Hari Prasad Prabhu in India for his stepping in and filling your spot for a few days while you were on plane from India to Canada here. So thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Let's bring forth the kirtan, chant along, and enjoy the rest of the day or evening as devoted participants in the Sankirtan mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivāsadi Gaurabhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivāsadi Gaurabhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivāsadi Gaurabhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.